everybody, welcome back to the Chapple Show, and today I'm going to be talking about how to pay no taxes, or for a lot of you, how to pay less taxes or to lower your tax bracket. So I got this idea because I was listening to a podcast from Robert Kiyosaki. He owns, I don't know, hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars in real estate investments, and he says that he makes millions of dollars per year that end up in his pocket, yet he has never paid taxes, legally never paid taxes. So I'm actually going to make a whole separate video on how he does it, and because he does it through real estate, and that's going to be its whole separate video because I know most of you watching this probably don't have real estate stuff that I can give you tips on, but seriously, you don't have to pay taxes if you invest in real estate to a certain amount. And go watch that video if I release it soon. But anyways, I'm going to talk about it for the average person or for freelancers, small business owners, all that stuff right now. So first thing I'm going to say is we'll talk about for the average employee, because 90% of people, 95% of people are employees. So how can an employee lower their taxes? So this is something which will differ by country to country, but it's tough for employees to lower their tax bracket. But from what I found here, in Canada, just by doing two things, you can lower your tax bracket by about 15 grand if you were to do this properly. So the very first thing is to invest in an RRSP, which in the United States would be like a 401k. So obviously, if you've watched my videos before, if you are an employee, this is good. But if you are a small business owner, entrepreneur, investor, I always say just kind of avoid these. But if you're an employee that doesn't like to invest or all that stuff, then yeah, you can put in I think it's 8 to 10 grand for an RRSP in Canada per year. I think it might be more than that now though. But yeah, so that can be $8,000. That can be an entire tax bracket right there if you invest thousands of dollars into that. Now, what happens is that you do have to pay that in tax in the future, but your tax bracket will be lower because you'll be 80 years old. So that's something to think about. You can put money in the RRSP that can knock down an entire tax bracket in Canada and the US, which by just doing that could save you, thousands of dollars in tax money. So the other thing here is that I don't know what the equivalent is in the United States, but in Canada we have this thing called a TFSA, tax-free savings account. So each year, what you can do is you can put about $5,000 to $6,000 in a tax-free savings account, and it doesn't get taxed. It's an account where you can just put money in a savings account and doesn't get taxed. So just by doing these two things, that's about 15 grand a year that you just save. And so that's something to think about here as an employee. So those are the basic things. Now, there's also expenses, but I think that's more for business and self-employed people. So we're going to move on here to business and self-employed. I should mention, I guess, a little bit for an employee or the average person is that, okay, so if the average person makes $32,000, you can put half of your income in a tax-free savings account. And if you only make 15 grand a year, you don't get taxed. That's just the way it is. Well, at least I think in Canada, you might actually still get taxed a little bit. But in the United States now, if you make less than 25 grand, you don't have to pay taxes. So if you put money in here and here, you just won't have to pay tax at all. So that's something to think about. So also the other thing too for the average person is, so for real estate, any interest you pay on your mortgage is a tax deduction. So that's something to think about. So for the average person, roughly, I don't know, a third of your mortgage payment actually goes towards the interest. So if you're paying $1,000, or I guess it'd be $2,000 a month, you can write off about $600-700 per month. So that's something to think about. So for business and self-employed people, oh my God. Okay, so this is actually one of the reasons why you should get a YouTube account is just for the tax write-offs. So me, I will have to pay a little bit of tax, but there's a real chance that I could make 100+ grand this year. Hopefully I'm gonna make more. And I will only have to pay a couple $1,000s in tax. That's about it. I'm going to explain why. So if I were an employee and I were to make 100 grand, it automatically comes out of my T4. So I would have to pay on 100 grand. That would be in Canada about 35 grand in tax, right? 30 grand in tax, I think, if I were to be an employee. But because I'm self-employed, own a few businesses, I'm only going to end up paying a few $1,000s. So why? So I'll just say business expenses, okay? So if you're a self-employed person, especially a self-employed salesperson, you can write off a lot of things. So you can write off, certain dinners. You can write off eating out, okay? So like I've actually gone to dinner and, had with clients, with real estate clients, and I get to write off that dinner. I think that, last time it was $89, right? Which isn't a lot. It wasn't a nice, super nice high-end place, but $89 is still, if you do that every week, it's a big write-off, right? You can write off dinners, you can write off equipment, you can write off gas, okay? People don't know this. You can write off gas if you're using it for business purposes. So most of my gas, not all of it, but most of the reason why I go out and drive and burn through my gas is for business purposes. So the gas is a write-off. If you work from home, you get to write off home office. So the larger your home office is in proportion to your house, then the more you get to write off. So you get to write off your hydro bill, electricity bill for a lot of you. You get to write off, gas, not gas, I said gas for cars already. Electricity, if you work online, you get to write off internet and phone, right? You get to write off a lot of things if you're self-employed. Okay, so my tax, I've already, just some perspective for you, in terms of business expenses, I've probably had about 8 grand, I guess we're 2 months in, so it'd be closer to $10,000 this year in business expenses so far. Isn't that crazy? So right now, it's just something for you guys to think about. So there's a lot of stuff you can write off. So I'll give you actually an example of, I've had the fortune of talking to many, 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 many business owners, and one of which I got to know very well was my mentor, Jeff. And he owns a lot of companies. He owns a chain of restaurants, is his biggest company. And he could, if he wanted to, he could take home a check for about 400 grand a year if he wanted to and have it be taxable income. But what he does is he will reinvest that into things like business expenses. So he actually only takes home about $70,000 a year. Meanwhile, his net worth will go up 400 grand. So that's something to think about. It's actually kind of cool. People think that it's unethical to do that, but if you want to grow a business, you don't want to be taxed at 56% like you are in Canada. People don't realize that you can't grow a business if more than half of your money is being taken out of your profits. Especially, when you're just starting out. Corporations too, even big companies. People don't understand that. How would a lot of employees feel if 56% of your income was just disappeared and you're working 16 hours a day if you're a business owner? If 56% of whatever you earn just goes to the tooth fairy. I know it doesn't go to tooth fairy, it goes to, a lot of good things. In Canada, it goes to the healthcare system, all that stuff. But anyways, I'm on a side tangent here. So, self-employment, a lot of business expenses. So here's why YouTube is so glorious. So if you make a relatively good income from YouTube, anything you put in a video that makes a decent amount of money is a tax write-off. All your equipment too, all that stuff. If you record on a phone, you can write off your phone. But anything like this whiteboard here, that's a tax write-off. This marker is a tax write-off. This washing stuff here, tax write-off. If you're playing video games, that's a tax write-off. For all the YouTube gamers, that's all tax write-offs. If you want to go on vacation and vlog it, that's a tax write-off. So if I ever go on vacation and I film it and I make money from it, I can write that off. That's a business expense. So all those people, like I know Ty Lopez, he travels the world, business expense. You buy a private jet, business expense. You put, like this is just something to think about. Why it's a great reason to start running a business and become self-employed is the benefits of the tax write-offs are just amazing. So like as I said before, there's a real chance there that I'm going to make, that my net worth is going to go up 5 times more than the average person this year, for the average person my age this year at least. Yet I might only pay half the amount of tax that they do. So that's something to think about. Anyways, I think that's going to wrap it up. But here's the thing. If you do all this stuff, you're still going to have to pay some tax most of the time. Sometimes you don't really have to. But here's the thing. Real estate. Watch that video. I'll put a link in the description maybe, or just it'll be on the sidebar or something. If you become a real estate investor in the proper way, I swear to God, you don't have to pay tax and still bring home hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in some cases. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.